everybody. My name is Jerry Yakov, and I'm your host. The name of this show is Spiritual Awakening 101. And I really like the name of our show. We've changed it somewhat recently. It used to be Spiritual Metaphysics 101. And I had the thought after many episodes with that title that it was kind of ununderstandable. And Spiritual Awakening 101 sounds a lot more understandable. We all want to spiritually awaken. It could be said that spiritual awakening is our purpose in being on the planet and being in a body and having a life, seemingly as a human being. The purpose of human beings living on the planet and having life as we experience it at this level of consciousness, the purpose is to have a spiritual awakening. And with that in mind, I've selected from A Course in Miracles, which is my spiritual path, a workbook lesson entitled I Am Spirt. This is lesson 97 from A Course in Miracles. And the title is I Am Spirt. And along with the title I Am Spirit must be the idea that you are spirit. I couldn't be spirit to the exclusion of any one of my brothers and sisters. If I am spirit, and I'm very clear that I am when I'm in my right mind, then I know that you're spirit when I'm in my right mind. As a matter of fact, there is no separation between us. I am spirit, you are spirit. I am spirit because you are spirit. You are spirit because I am spirit. And we're both spirit because God is spirit. The spiritual essence of God is our true identity. And the extension from God of spirit is our nature. There's a Buddhist idea of interbeingness. This is because of that. That is because of this. So we are spirit because of God. And then I am spirit because of you, and you are spirit because of me, and we're in unity because God is spirit, or love, and the extension and creation of that oneness. Well, let's read a little bit into this workbook lesson of I Am Spirit. It says, today's idea identifies you with your one true self. It accepts no split identity, which would reference a small self or an inauthentic ego. And it does not try to weave opposing factors into unity. That's not possible. Only the truth is unity. It simply states the truth. Practice this truth today, as often as you can, for it will bring your mind from conflict to the quiet fields of peace. Well, this is the goal of A Course in Miracles, and probably all spiritual paths, to know the peace of God rather than the suffering or the fear or the disquiet of separation. It says here, no chill of fear can enter, for your mind has been absolved from madness. Letting go illusions of a split identity, being separate from everybody else, being a small ego, being fearful of others as if they were different and pose a threat. The next paragraph says, we state again the truth about your true self, the holy child of God who rests in you, whose mind has been restored to sanity. Well, this is really the equivalent of spirit, the word mind. We are not a body in truth. We are experiencing ourselves as bodies, but our true identity is spirit or mind. And it says, you who rest in the true self, your mind has been restored to sanity. You are the spirit lovingly endowed with all your Father's love and peace and joy. You are the spirit which completes himself and shares his function as creator. Well, here's an allusion to our co-creation identity. God is the creator, and we are spirit in his likeness and image as co-creator. And we can do that if we're in our right minds and we choose to co-create. He, meaning God, is always with you as you are with him. And so it's quite natural to co-create with the power and the love and the energy of God. It's very unnatural, reference to split mind or inauthentic self, to create by oneself without God. And that leads to all of the suffering and the fear that we experience when we're not co-creating with true self, God, and our essence. Today we try to bring reality still closer to your mind. Each time you practice, awareness is brought a little nearer at least. Sometimes 1,000 years or more are saved. Well, this reference to 1,000 years or more are saved, I think alludes to the resistance that we all have to being true self, one in the spirit. So as long as we resist that idea, today's workbook lesson that I am spirit and you are spirit, then we remain in a suffering state of inauthentic ego self. And it takes, in our time and space continuum, thousands of years. And since time is an illusion anyway, in the true metaphysical sense, we simply get an idea of the enormity of our resistance. That's the whole idea. We save thousands of years that don't exist to undo the resistance to our identity and awaken to ourselves. But the time is irrelevant because it is an illusion. But it points to the resistance. And this is a very important idea because A Course in Miracles and many other spiritualities that deal with limitations, blocks, obstacles to the awareness of perfection as spirit, focus on these obstacles. And it's our work and our practice to turn those resistance points and those obstacles over to our higher power, to God, to the true self. Only because we resist turning them over. We're comfortable with them, we embrace them, we identify with them, they're familiar to us. He says here, it would take thousands of years, but you will save thousands of years if you practice this thought vigilantly and diligently every day. I am spirit. You are spirit. So you greet everyone that you meet in your mind's eye. You are spirit. And of course, since there is this oneness, you know you are spirit as well. He goes on to say, the minutes which you give are multiplied over and over, for the miracle makes use of time, but is not ruled by it. Why? Because it's an illusion, but it makes use of time in our state of consciousness. So it's helpful. We mark each day as a day of practice, but there is no day in eternity. There are an infinite number of days, which means there are no days. But it's useful for learning purposes. Salvation is a miracle. Well, salvation refers to the finally letting go of the resistance to our oneness with our Creator, with Spirit. Salvation is the full awakening to our identity as Spirit. And he says here, salvation is a miracle, the first and last. Because all miracles are really the same. It's a return to love from a state of ego fear. The first, that is the last, for it is one. So here again is a reference to the illusion of first and last. The first is last because there is no first. First implies time, and there is no time. So your identity as spirit does not precede my identity as spirit. You may be older than I am as a body, which may mean you preceded me in time, but that is in no reference to the truth that we were created before time and we exist eternally after time no longer seems to rule our consciousness. And we're returned to a state of timelessness and eternity, or immortality. He says here, you are the Spirit, in whose mind abides the miracle, which is love, in which all time stands still. The miracle, again the love, in which a minute spent in using these ideas becomes a time that has no limit and that has no end. Well, time, being an illusion, has no limit and it has no end. Time never runs out. It never began. How can it end? So this is a complete reversal of our thought system, a thought system that's based on scarcity, beginnings, middles, and ends, time and space. Here we're identifying in our mind, I am spirit, you are spirit, and that is love, that is the miracle. So we're awakening really to the essence of who and what we are. And we're doing it by virtue of practicing in our everyday lives, in the normalcy of a day, in the seeming normalcy of every hour that we spend. Give then these minutes willingly, and count on Him, God, who promised to lay timelessness beside them. God will offer all His strength to every little effort that you make. Because our identity as ego really is powerless until we align our thinking with the Spirit and co-create. That's as far as our function goes. We're to decide to align our thinking with the power of the Holy Spirit, who then strengthens our every little effort. Give Him the minutes which He needs today to help you understand with Him you are the Spirit that abides in Him. We are spirit, and we abide in God, not in bodies, not in a world of time and limitation and form, and that calls through His voice to every living thing, offers His sight to everyone who asks, replaces error with the simple truth. So we are spirit. And by implication here, he says, we offer God's sight to everyone who asks, and we replace error with the simple truth by being a conduit, a vessel, a messenger. Right-mindedly, we join with other people's minds, and we connect with them, not as bodies, although bodies are useful for communication devices, but we use our Buddha mind, our Christ mind, to discern the right thing to say, the right thing to do, the aware, skillful way to be in our everyday activities, so that they are transformed, if you will, from the everyday to the miracleized, to the holy. Well, it goes on and says, the Holy Spirit will be glad to take 5 minutes of every hour from your hands and carry them around this aching world where pain and misery appear to rule. He will not overlook one open mind that will accept the healing gifts that they bring, and He will lay them everywhere He knows they will be welcome. So here is an implication that the figures in our state of consciousness dream, the ego dream, can be elevated, if you will, to holy encounters. The meetings that are everyday, humdrum, can be elevated to holiness. And of course, in Miracle says every meeting can be a holy encounter. If we make the decision within our own minds to be miracle-minded, to see every brother and sister as spirit. And as we see every brother and sister as spirit, forgiven, redeemed, having accepted salvation, then we know ourselves to be that as well. Because we're always looking into a mirror. And when I see you as spirit, I'm looking at my own image in the mirror, so to speak. And I know that I'm saying to myself, I am spirit. And we both transcend the form, which seems to be separate from each other. And we transcend the body, which seems to be separate from each other. And they will increase in healing power, these gifts, these miracles, each time someone accepts them as his thoughts and uses them to heal. So really, that's all we're to do, is be aware that our thoughts, from our identity as spiritual minds, have all the power of transformation and of miracles and of awakening and enlightenment and salvation and atonement. True redemption comes from a change in our thinking from fear and ego to love and spirit. I am spirit. You are spirit. How wonderful to know that. How wonderful to see everybody as spirit. Now, is that something that'll happen before these thousands of years have gone by? My experience is it's a hit or miss proposition, because we're learning. This is a practice of purification in our minds. We're purifying our minds of all of the guilt that is the obstacle and the block to the awareness of our identity as spirit. And until all of that guilt and all of those obstacles are removed through forgiveness and alignment with spirit, it'll be hit and miss. So Jesus says to us, my brother, choose to look with me again. You forgot. Okay, I'm here to remember always. And I will be with you when you choose to co-create and don't take your body's eyes for the truth of what they see. Look with the spiritual eye, the Christ vision, the pure Buddha, the Tao, the compassionate mind, the selflessness. That is the spirit that we all are. And then what we see in the mirror is a spaciousness, a pure spaciousness that exists to co-create with God. All right, we're getting down to the last 3 paragraphs here. It says, thus will each gift to God be multiplied 1,000-fold and tens of thousands more. And when it is returned to you, it will surpass in might the little gift you gave, as much as does the radiance of the sun outshine the tiny gleam of a firefly that makes an uncertain moment of light and goes out. So he's comparing the incomparable here. He's saying we really can't comprehend in a conceptual way the peace and the joy and the love and the light of the miracle of accepting, our true identity as spirit. But he's holding out, if you will, some concepts. It's as if you're comparing the light of the sun to the light of a firefly that briefly flickers of light and then goes out, whereas the sun has this brilliant radiance. Well, that's a comparison or a metaphor for our everyday idea of love and light as compared to the true spiritual experience of a revelation, let's say. When you have revelation, which I've experienced, and I'm not saying that in an egotistical way. I remember the experience was so blissful, and it was incomparable to anything I'd ever experienced on the ego pleasure scale of things. It was just bliss, pure bliss. And then for some reason it didn't last because I disconnected. So we want to practice connecting with the truth that we are spirit and keep having those experiences of miracles, which then prepares us vis-a-vis purification and mind discipline for an absolute revelation. And then the revelation allows us to experience what the Course calls the real world. And then we're living at Heaven's Gate. We're right outside of the restoration of the full awareness of our identity as pure spirit, inseparable from each other and inseparable from God the Creator. Well, let's go on with the last couple of paragraphs, and I appreciate your attention and your working with this because I know it's not easy for the small mind that we habitually inhabit to grasp this. But I promise you, there is a greater mind, the self, the true self, the spiritual mind that is awakening and saving thousands of years by virtue of grappling with this and making sense of it so we can apply it in our everyday lives. This is an enormous practice of spiritual awakening, to simply remember I am spirit, and conversely everyone else is spirit as well. So it says, begin these happy exercises with the words the Holy Spirit speaks to you, and let them echo round the world through God. And here's a prayer that the Holy Spirit gives for us to remember each day. Spirit am I, a holy child of God, free of all limits, safe and healed and whole, free to forgive and free to save the world. Spirit am I, a holy child of God, free of all limits, safe and healed and whole, free to forgive, to love, and free to save the world. Then the final few sentences and paragraph. Expressed through you, that would be the love, the Holy Spirit will accept this gift that you received of Him, increase its power, and give it back to you. So there is a full circle or cycle, if you will, of acceptance of the truth within our minds, extension of the truth from our minds to other minds, that we are spirit and love, and then a receipt back to us and an affirmation that we are the very thing that we are giving. Because it's a spiritual truism that giving and receiving are one in truth. And so when I extend or express or give the affirmation that I am spirit to another spirit, I receive it. Giving and receiving are one in truth. And then he concludes in this last paragraph, offer each practice period today gladly to God. So we're dedicating our practice each day. We're dedicating it to really our true identity as the self, the God, the spirit within us. It says, offer each practice period today gladly. God is looking for happy learners. We want to bring a spirit of willingness. We want to bring a spirit of devotion. We want to bring a spirit of true vigilance, a vow. I like the idea of a vow. It's a very Buddhist idea. Monks and monastics take vows. Well, lay people such as you and I can take vows as well. Because the vows really are not about the form of one's lifestyle, per se. I mean, you and I are not monks and nuns. The vow is about a transformation in our awareness and an awakening to the spirit that is within us, both those who are monastics and those that are lay people. So we're taking a vow and offering each practice period gladly to God. And He will speak to you, reminding you that you are spirit. and one with him and God, your brothers and yourself. Listen for his assurance. You will get an affirmation back. If you offer it as a vow and place it on the altar within your mind, you will be given a reciprocal gift of miracles. And every time you speak the words he offers you today, and let him tell your mind that they are true. Use them against temptation and escape its sorry consequences if you yield to the belief that you are something else. Well, temptation is the idea that seems to be alluring to us, that we're other than spirit. We're a body. We're our checkbook. We're our strengths, our bodily beauties, our personalities, our intelligence quotient, our experience in the world. None of that, I should say all of those things separate and distinguish us from everybody else. Only spirit is the great unifier. So we want to let go of these false idols or temptations to trade on our personal strengths or personal weaknesses. The ego doesn't care. It will use the weaknesses and the defects and the shortcomings to distinguish itself within us from others. It's not particular. And that's why we have mood swings. That's why sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. There is no equanimity in a spiritual identity of self. Only the true identity as spirit gives us that equanimity and peace and surrender and serenity. So he says, use this idea that I am spirit against temptation and escape its sorry consequences, where you will suffer and you will feel fearful. So if you yield to the belief that you are something else, you will be giving into these temptations. He concludes by saying, the Holy Spirit gives you peace today. Receive his words and offer them to him. Well, in essence, he's saying offer them to him, to God, as every other brother and sister is manifested, because everybody is spirit. So we offer this thought of I am spirit to everybody else, and likewise to ourselves. And then we rest in the peace and serenity of our true oneness and unity in heaven. And we awaken to that. Well, thank you for sharing this day with me in this episode. We will see you next time. I like to close with Namaste, Shalom, and peace. See you next time.